tutti si vedere, caira batu suere matre spura, tacerenti, Piriku tutte rispagliano gente, su cui amatosci, tapacutro spirato, ancora. Cucina ma sulla ieri sera, te pacacutro spagnato, te tutto.
Hi, everyone. And at the table, we have myself, Vox Angeles, and Andana Sananda Kamara. And we would like to welcome today Laara Herod. And we're so excited to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with both you beautiful ladies.
Welcome, Laara. I'm so excited to have you here today, and I'm happy to get a taste of your light language so our audience can learn a bit more about light language from your unique perspective.
Beautiful. Well, I think we should start out really, just so we have some framework. How did you actually begin to speak light language? How did you come about doing what it is that you're presently doing?
Well, it's a little bit interesting story because as a child, I actually did speak light language, although I didn't realize that it was light language. And then, like so many of us, through growing up, we suppress a lot of those innate abilities in connecting with spirit and our gifts and talents. And I was one of those people, so I suppressed it in order to fit in. And it was around 2016 when I had a dream. I woke up from a dream and had these codes floating around in my bedroom in the middle of the night. And it was from that day forward that I could channel light codes. And then it was a couple of years after that that I learned how to channel light language. And by learning, I mean getting out of my own way and being brave enough to spit it out.
Can you explain a little bit about the difference between channeling light codes and channeling light language?
For me, light language is a long, drawn out stream of energy, and light codes are packets of energy. So we can speak both light language and light codes. Although, for my simplicity, for my own being, I tend to say that light codes are just like a nice, compact package of information that's a neat, like a stamp, It's just this. There it is. And then we can work with it from a visual perspective as something that we can draw out. A little bit different than the light language where we can have this long drawn out string of information, and they can be a bunch of sigils, but as each sigil wouldn't be standing on its own the way a light code stands on its own. And as I worked with light language and light codes, and my channeling has grown, I've been able to discern the light codes coming in within the stream of light language channeling. So you get these packets of codes that are coming in amongst the long drawn out stream of information. So there still is a distinction between them because the light language seems to be this long, either bout of information or a bout of healing, where the code can stand on its own. I see it as like a zip file on a computer where it's all nice and compacted. And then when we work with it, as in we're meditating on it, or our being is receiving it in a light language channeling, or spoken light language channeling, for example, over time, the being can unpack that and reveal the grandeur of that zip file.
That's very interesting, and it's an interesting perspective, because I know many people consider light codes and light language synonymous. They're pretty much the same thing. But I'm curious about light codes. How do you go about facilitating the integration of those light codes? Do you have clients interact with those physically, or are you touching those, or how do you go about facilitating that integration of light codes versus light language?
Well, the codes I've used as the foundation for my books. So I have 3 international best-selling books, and within those books, you'll find these codes. And so people just work their way through the book simply by gazing upon the light code. And then it's their subtle bodies and various levels of consciousness, whether it's something that they can actually have a visceral reaction to, some people do, or if it's going to be something on a more subtle level, either in the subconscious or in the superconscious realms. But it's really the energy bodies that are going to be working with the energy emitted by the codes and an individual's level of consciousness as directed by their higher aspects.
Well, I would ask too, and we're kind of asking everyone here, and you may have touched on it a little bit, and I never like to define things, but I know that people are always asking me. So I'm going to ask you for your interpretation as well. So what is light language to you? How would you define that to someone?
This is a deep question. So I first go back to everything is energy. Absolutely. Everything in the universe is energy. You and I are energy. And light language is just simply an expression of that energy. Now, we like to see light language as this expression where we're bypassing the thinking brain, so we're not limiting ourselves with that information or that healing, because it's coming through as different sounds or different squiggles or different movements if we're using our hands in order to bring that energy through. But it's a way that we can either be verbal or nonverbal. It's a channeling of energy, frequency, information, consciousness that is all inclusive of the great divine. And it's in accordance and alignment with love, with universal laws of integrity, and it serves us all individually in extraordinarily unique ways, because it is the divine. It's an expression of the divine frequency consciousness.
I know when I know both Donna and I both kind of have that same, if similar viewpoint. And often, like within my own work, I state Elohim, source, what have you, but I'm just allowing it to flow. I'm not really trying to identify where it's coming from, who it's coming from. But you have a lot of people that are speaking light language, and they'll say, well, this is Archangel Michael, or this is the Pleiadians, or this is the Arcturians, and so forth. So do you have any sense in your own work of like who or what you are communicating with? Does it matter? Or are you just kind of saying higher self source? What do you feel about that when you're doing your work?
I'm so excited about this question. So if I first started off by channeling universal source energy, so I would call it universal light language. And my interpretation of universal light language is that it's source energy, it's divine consciousness in its completion. So in other words, it's going to speak to everybody because everybody is of source energy. Now, in my channeling, as I've gotten better, because if like anything, the more we practice, the more hopefully we're going to get better at something. Well, I've discovered that I can channel specific frequency streams. So that's where we can get into saying, well, we're channeling Archangel Michael, or we're channeling the Pleiadians, or we're channeling a high priestess Pleiadian, or we're channeling our higher self, or. And what I've discovered is that because everything is energy, everything has a consciousness to it, and everything has a unique signature, a unique energetic signature. Therefore, if we are able to tap into that unique energetic signature, we can channel it. So we can channel Venus. We could channel our sun. We could channel the Milky Way. We could channel, you name it. I mean, we could channel Halley's Comet. Like, everything is energy, everything is consciousness, and so therefore we can channel it. So what do I channel? I channel universal source energy. But if someone asks me to channel Yeshua, we can channel Yeshua. If someone asks me to channel the High Priestess Collective of the Pleiadians, I can channel that. You want me to channel the collective energy of the Pleiadians, which is a different frequency from the High Priestess collective energy of the Pleiadians, we can channel that too. So it's really cool. And I had a fantastic experience recently when I was called to go to a house where there was a small group of people. There were only about 10 or 12 people there. And this was during my trip to Australia just a couple of months ago. And it was the coolest thing, because I just went around the room and everybody asked me to channel somebody different. Someone wanted Mary Magdalene, somebody wanted the High Priestess Pleiades, someone wanted the Milky Way. But there was an East Indian guru that was called in. I don't know who this person is. I don't know if he's living or not. I have no idea, because this isn't part of my study, so it was just not somebody that I knew. But she called it in. She asked for it, and I felt the energy show up, and I went, okay, yep, we can channel that. So I channeled, and afterwards she came up to me and she said, there was Sanskrit in there. There were tones that we would use when we're chanting. You absolutely channeled this person. Like, it was such a cool connection to make. And I still don't know really who this person is, and if they're living or not. I mean, at that point, it didn't actually matter to me at all. But it just shows you, like, everything's energy, everything's consciousness. And so if we're open enough and we're receptive enough and we're in our heart enough, and it's being called for because somebody's needing it, so there's some part of them that's needing it. Those of us who have chosen to be in service, and which is pretty much everyone here, I think, on this planet, I would like to think it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely beautiful. And it speaks to the fact that we're all one and all interconnected. But I'm curious, because there are many people who have such a fear around this type of interaction, this type of activity. How did you learn to discern the energy so that you knew that you could trust it without any fear? Because fear can be a hindrance to our willingness to open to this type of interaction. So how did you get to that space where you could trust what you were receiving?
I went through a lot of fear myself personally. Certainly had a lot of nights lying in my bed, and I could hear footprints around my house that shouldn't be there. I live on my own. So at the time I lived on my own. So, that is an obstacle. What I discovered for myself was the more I tuned into the heart space, the more I connected with my own energy and became solidified, let's say, in my own energy, then the more I realized that, first of all, there aren't that many energies out there that are really going to mess with us. We have to be at a certain vibrational range in order for those energies, those entities, that kind of consciousness to even come and bother. I had wonderful teachers that taught me that we are the masters of this three-dimensional realm, and that this is our domain. So spirit, no matter what range they're in, have to listen to us here. So the more I connect to the heart, that helps to raise the vibration. It helps to create that mental clarity and realize that I'm okay. I am in myself okay, no matter what's going on, getting that solidification within my own being. Then the spiritual energies it's just not an issue anymore. And you realize how much more support you have than you could have ever imagined. And anything that might kind of rear its ugly head really isn't what we think it is. It's not what we think it is. It's usually like some shadow aspect of our own self that needs to be cleared out. It's not even like something that's separate from us, if we even perceive anything as being separate at all. But yeah, it's all about, for me, it's perspective and sitting in the heart space.
It's interesting that you're talking about protection, because I think everyone goes through that a little bit. And what was interesting was, in my mind, from growing up and so forth, and my childhood was very similar to what you were explaining in the beginning. But every training that I've ever had always had this component of protection. And somewhere within me, I always thought, I'm not in need of protection. Yet somewhere else within me was this, I've got to protect myself. And I just remember Elohim was always telling me, your vibration, you through the work, is you don't need protection. Just be who it is that you are. Do the work. And it was all about vibration. And I've found after that, and some of the events I've had, when I'm doing activations and so forth, I see all manner of beings, non-physical beings, coming in to take part and to receive. And it's really interesting because I can see them, right? And some of them are darker, right? And some of them aren't, but they're actually there to receive a transmission and to be able to transform and change. So it's just really interesting when you can have that perspective, the beauty that exists there and the opportunity that exists there, and just the availability of things when you're looking at it from that higher perspective.
Yeah, very much so.
Now, do you, I'm trying to think how to form, I guess I would ask, how did this work in it, whether in its beginnings or kind of ongoing? How has doing this work actually transformed you and your own life? Maybe even the trajectory of your life. How has that changed as you have been sharing this work?
Well, I was a competitive athlete when these codes showed up that night in my bedroom. And I had aspirations to go to the Olympics, compete for my country. I was on the road a lot. I was stressed beyond comprehension. And I would wake up, I was just actually thinking about this morning. I would wake up in the morning of a competition day with so much anxiety that I'd have to be on my front side in bed and then curl up in a little ball and breathe. And as I was breathing and trying to will myself out of bed, I was asking, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself? And I was a competitive show jumper, so my life was around horses, and I loved my horse so much. Like she meant the world to me, and thankfully she helped me when I got to the barn and I could work with her and everything. Just being around her, the anxiety went away, and we were quite successful. But I would ask myself often, why am I doing this? Because it just didn't seem right that I was putting myself through this kind of stress. And so these codes showed up, and I decided, oh, I want to explore this more. I want to develop my spirituality. I hear about these gifts and talents that people have, and what are mine? And oh, I'm special and unique. Oh, I want to learn about that. And the ego gets very excited about that sort of thing. So I gradually moved away from the competition scene and started embracing walking the spiritual path. And in doing so, learned more about myself, got way more stable in my own being. I was nowhere near grounded when I started this whole process. And I am like way more grounded than I am today than I ever have been in my life. And my life is so much better for it. And the light language, I've realized, like sometimes I would think, oh, it hasn't played a role in my life barely at all, because it just comes so easily for me. Like channeling light language is like speaking English to me. It's just so easy. And sometimes when you have something that is that easy, you take it for granted and you don't give it the credit that's due. So it's something that I've sat with, and over only the last 2 years, I've sat with it, asking, is this something that's important? Like, is this something that I should pay attention to, other than just like make YouTube videos? Like, because people seem to like it. Like, I'm glad that it's helping people, but is it doing anything for me? I don't know. Well, it is. It actually is, because the transmissions, whether they're the light codes that I'm drawing, and then the message that comes through from spirit on that code, oh my gosh, like sometimes I'll channel something and I'll have to go take a nap. Like it's so powerful, and that plays out in your life. You're not always conscious of how it ripples out, but it absolutely does. And it's something that's very hard to track. But what I've noticed more recently is when I watch the videos that I record and post on Instagram or post on Facebook or YouTube, I can feel it. I can feel that transmission, and I go, wow, like I made one the other day actually that was for clearing the mind, like for foggy mind, because I was like, I have a foggy brain sometimes. I bet other people do. Instead of like grabbing that second cup of coffee, listen to this. Well, so I made it and then thought nothing of it, posted it, and then I was feeling foggy and I thought, geez, I should go watch that thing. Do you know what? It cleared my mind up. Imagine that. Like, so, and same like if I work through my own books that I channeled, I know these codes intimately. They came through me. The message from spirit came through me. I've edited this thing, I don't even know how many times. Like, I know these books inside and out. And yet when I read it, as though I'm reading it for the first time, holy smokes, like you better watch out. These energies are for real, and I'm thinking to myself, this is all like for me, and putting this on anybody else. For me, I'm like, oh, that was so cool. Like I went on this big journey just from gazing at this light code that I tell people to do all the time. But here I am actually doing it, and I'm like, holy crap. And I'm like, ooh, that was quite a journey. What's next? And I go and I do the next one, and I go, oh man, that was fun too. Let's do another one, and get all excited and do another one. Well, the next day I have a whole spiritual hangover because I've taken on way too much energy. And, but it just shows like, hey, this is for real. Like you can't make this up. So how is it impacting my life? Well, it's making me grow as a human being, for sure. It's making me realize that what I'm bringing forward to the world matters. And the importance of that for people, I think, is huge. We have to feel like we have a place in the world. We have to feel like we're doing something that's benefiting others, whether it's just our community or just our small family or globally, like whatever level to which we can extend ourselves to be of service and to help another person. When I wrote my first book, I made an agreement with spirit, and I said, look, I don't know who this is for, but if I touch one person, if I help one person, it will all have been worth it. And that's how I stand today. So it's making me a better person. And I believe that I have sensory processing disorder. Not a lot of people know that. I was diagnosed as an adult with sensory processing disorder. That has shifted and from being a very, very difficult thing to live with to being a completely manageable, basically forgettable thing. I don't know if I went for testing again, if I would qualify at this point, unless I get hugely triggered with a whole bunch of stress or something. But hey, I know how to deal with that now. I know how to deal with that now. I don't have to go see a whole bunch of specialists and make a whole bunch of appointments and spend a bunch of money. I can handle that now because I can handle my own energy. And the light language and light codes have played a huge role in that self-discovery and self-advancement.
Nice. That's absolutely beautiful. And I love that you touched on taking your own transmissions and receiving them yourself, because we have we're inundated. I think we're conditioned to serve the world and negate ourselves, thinking that it's arrogance or selfishness to focus on self. But you have to focus on yourself because you can't fill anyone from an empty bucket. You have to make self-care a paramount thing. So I love that you shared that, and it's beautiful. And I think, speaking for myself, it's one of the things that's catalyzed me to the degree that I've progressed, because I focused on receiving my own transmissions, and I leveled up really, really fast. It skyrockets you, right? It skyrockets you. I think that's absolutely beautiful. Yeah. So I'm curious, how has your family taken to you as a light language channel now? Are they into the metaphysical world? Are they still in the logical 3D state of being?
Fortunately, my mom is very into it. So she does her good inner work. She's very aware of spirit and wanting to develop a stronger connection there. And I think she's thrilled that I learned some energy healing techniques, and I think she thinks that light language is pretty cool. I know she's really proud of me for like publishing the books and doing all of that. And I think for her, I think her biggest thing is just contribute to the world, however you need to do it, and so I feel very accepted by her. My dad is just proud that I'm doing what I'm doing and having a bit of a successful go at it. So he's also supportive, although he does not understand it. And we don't really talk about it. So like, that's okay. My partner is very spiritual himself and has actually played a large role in my healing journey and all of that. So that's very easy. The rest of the family, however, we have scientists, cousins that are scientists, and yep, no, they don't understand. They don't understand any of it. I could actually say that a large part of the family is a little bit of atheist in like atheist perspective. Like they're not totally sure that there's much beyond this physical reality. And but interestingly, they've married into other families that do believe that there's some, like, a great spirit of some kind, so some Christian backgrounds, and so that's made a little bit of room for me not being completely off the rocker, and they just sort of accept, oh yeah, she's doing that. I was already weird because I was show jumping like with horses, so that I was already the weird one with the horse thing going on, although they were pleased that I again was successful there, but I always felt like I was a bit of the black sheep, but they're kind about it, at least.
I was laughing earlier when you were talking about going through your book and looking at the light codes and so forth and going, oh wow, it works. It was funny because I was having a challenge a few weeks ago, and the angels came in and they're kind of like, have you listened to your own transmissions? Have you looked at your own symbols? And then I was thinking, no, not really. Yeah, and it's funny, and you know what Donna was saying, it was just kind of interesting. You're doing things in service, and of course you receive when it's flowing through you, and you're doing that work, but never once up until that point, and it sounds really silly to say, I never went back beyond like manipulating a video and putting it on YouTube or something. I never went back to actually experience my own work, which was kind of funny. And so now I do, and even working, like you were saying something similar earlier about creating kind of prescriptive light codes or prescriptive transmissions. So I'm curious, within your work, how do you feel that light language is interacting with the physical body and the energetic field? You know, if you were to explain to someone, like, what am I going to experience type of thing, how do you feel that it's actually transforming, healing, creating change?
So I believe that it creates change on any and all levels possible. I see it as being another form of homeopathy, because it's a energetic resonance that is interacting with the body on multiple levels. Homeopathy, if you go see an actual homeopathist and they prescribe a remedy for you, they're listening to the totality of your presentation. So what are you feeling? What are you thinking? How is this playing out in your life? How are you able to, or not able to, integrate what's going on, and or digest what's going on, that sort of thing. And so that homeopathy is going to have an impact on the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual aspects. And I feel that the light code is exactly the same. It can have a physical response. You can have an emotional response. You can have a spiritual response, and you can have emotional response. And you can do that just, again, by gazing at a light code, trying best if you can enter into a light meditative state. But hey, if it's just up on a wall, that energy is coming through, and it's going to be working with all the levels of your being all the time in accordance with your higher aspects and what they deem is most important at any given time. And yeah, I mean, I have people who have had pain reduction. I have had people who have shifted some illnesses. I've had people who can gain a greater clarity and connection to their higher aspects, or to various parts, say different chakras, or the entirety of the chakra system, or the movement of energy in their body. So all the meridians and things like that. It can work with all of it. It can work with all of it. The issue seems to be that we're very physical, and if we don't see it or feel it, then it mustn't exist. And a lot of the energetic work is very subtle. And so if you have somebody who is not a sensitive person, or even if they are highly sensitive, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to perceive what's going on. You know, some of that stuff is just going to be done on the unconscious levels, and oftentimes those are the most important levels. It's fun when we get to experience something, because then it's tangible. It makes it more real for us, or it makes it more tangible at least. But I see it in working with all levels all the time, and the higher aspects get to direct where the energy wants to go, where it's going to be most beneficial for a person at any given time, which is subject to change.
Well, that's interesting that you said, and I love the analogy, because you're talking about light language as kind of homeopathy. Because the one thing that I was guided to, and I guess it's a similar thing, was they were like, well, light language, frequency, energy, resonance, vibration. And it's like the Bach flower essences, which I guess is homeopathic. And I was thinking about that, because when you think about the Bach flower essences, like each flower has a different vibration or frequency that's utilized. And it's really the exact same thing when you're speaking of light language. Now, often people say that, it sounds different, sounds like you might be speaking Chinese or something, some other different language that people can kind of listen. Sounds like you're from Tibet, type of thing. It's like, no, or it sounds Native American. And a lot of people say what it sounds like to them. But I think with each expression, and it's always different, it's a different frequency. It may be a different qualitative aspect. There might be a different dynamic to that frequency as well. And so I really love that homeopathic analogy because of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. To piggyback on that, I'm curious to know if you have a sense of what's coming through as you are channeling your light language.
I do. I'm very
Yeah.
conscious. I'm very
Yeah.
conscious of it. What I notice is that the channelings, if it's light language, they are typically either more healing based or they're more informational based. So if they're informational based, that's something that can be translated into English. If it's healing based, then that's not really translatable. And I like to say it's like you go for a Reiki session and you got their hands over you. No one's going to translate what that energy is doing, like there's nothing to translate. It's healing. So yeah, that's what I've discovered. Sometimes with a healing frequency, you can have a line come in of information, and that's then translatable, or vice versa. You could have an information-based channeling, and then you could have a line of healing that comes through that would not be translatable.
Do we have time for one more question? Well, so here's another question. For someone who's not familiar with light language, who's coming and watching this maybe for the first time and getting inundated with a little bit of a taste of what light language is, what would you say would be a recommended course of action for them to help facilitate embodying their own light language?
Connect to the heart.
Mm.
Do the good heart work. The heart, the quote, my quote, I get to claim this one. To have access to your heart is to have access to your soul. And the heart is the bridge between the physical realm and the spiritual realm. So if we want to do anything with spirit, everybody thinks it's all the third eye. It's not all the third eye. It starts here. It starts with the heart. And or simultaneously, while we're getting reacquainted with this center, we need to ground. Because if we're going to bring the energies from the cosmos or from wherever they're coming from, our higher self, or even just ourself, we have to be able to be in our body, and we have to be able to anchor that energy into the body in order for it to mean anything. Otherwise, it stays out there as that intangible something. We have to give it some kind of form.
Yeah.
And I think that happens when we bring it into the body.
What would your definition of grounding be? How does one ground? What does it mean to ground?
So what I was taught, one of my most amazing teachers, Rosalind Briere, she's out of California, and she's an incredible healer, medicine woman, acknowledged oracle for the Tibetan bone people. And so the way she teaches grounding is by pulling the earth energy up from the bottoms of the feet. We have chakras in the bottoms of the feet. So we pull that earth energy up into our feet, up our entire body, all the way up to our head. And from that point, we could either keep the energy in the body, or we could, on the exhale, release the energy out our crown. And then we pull it back in on the inhale, exhale, and that creates the toroidal field that we're actually now more consciously aware of. But this energy is, we're beings of the earth. We are in earthly bodies, and we're only borrowing these beautiful bodies. So they are of the earth. They belong to the earth, and the earth energy heals us. And unfortunately, humanity, a lot of people in the Western cultures have completely lost touch with what grounding is and to be connected with the earth. So we're all walking around with our energies high up around our waist or our knees and bumping and tripping over things and stuff like that because we have no idea where our feet are. So pulling that energy in is going to connect us back to the earth, and it's going to be very, very healing for the body. It's going to be healing for the nervous system. This energy, when we channel it out our hands, this is prime healing energy. So for those of you out there who are wanting to be energy healers, all you have to do is pull that earth energy up and push it out your hands. There you go. But yeah, and I think there's a lot of unfortunately, there are traditions out there who believe that everything up here is good and everything from the ground is bad. And that's what created that disconnect. So it's reintegrating that and not just relying on the cosmic external energy and working more with what we're really here to be a part of. We are here as humans. Humans belong to the earth. Let's play with the earth energy. Yes, bring in the cosmos, but you have to have that imbalance. You can't just play with the cosmic energies.
It's interesting because I was going to ask a question, and then Donna asked that beautiful question and kind of a lead in, because I was going to ask you, and I kind of have an idea just from my perspective, and I'm familiar with some of your work. There's a lot of people that feel like, oh, I don't like the word channeling for myself. And the best I've come up with is like, I'm a conduit, I don't know. But I also feel like I'm an embodied conduit for that. And I'm curious what your perspective is, because you stated, as I am, light language is always there. It comes out at any time. I can access it at any time. So do you feel like it's something that's moving as and through you, working, something else is working through your physical body? Or do you feel like it's flowing in and you're able to access it and push it out, so to speak, and utilize it? Or do you feel it's more that it has gradually over the years and of its use become like this embodied experience that is you? Does that make sense? You're not listening to something outside of you and thinking it and translating it, versus it just flowing through as you. Does that make sense? The question.
Yes, I would have to say it's a combination of all of that, because depending on what I'm channeling. So for example, if I'm channeling universal source energy, then it's just, that flow that's coming through. And it's just a connection to all that is, let's say. If it's a specific being, then there is the oneness aspect to it, but it's a distinct something that needs to come through. So there is a bit of a differentiating quality to that. So that's a bit of a hard question to answer, because we're getting into, like, how do you describe things that are practically indescribable? But trying my best. What I notice when I channel, though, is that I literally, and I don't have another word for it, so I just call it channeling. It makes sense to me because I see this channel that comes in and all the way, and it connects into my heart space, and my third eye is involved, and the crown's involved because it's coming in through the crown. And obviously the throat and everything, and you're kind of anchoring it into the rest of the body. And then, so I guess, okay, let me break it down now that I've done that. So you make the connection, and now you're in the oneness. So you're in the flow. You're in the flow of all that is. And then if there is a specific being, for example, that wants to share, then that gets filtered in. And I have one particular guide, but all my guides help but one guide in particular that's helps with the more galactic, if you want to call it that. So that would be the Pleiadian, the Arcturian, Lemurian, even, like anything that's more in that kind of realm of consciousness. His name's K, because there's no possible way that I could make the sound of his real name. The human body cannot create the screeching sound that his name is. So his name's K, and he helps to direct whenever we have somebody who wants to come through and be, and I'm privileged to express.
Beautiful. You did a fantastic job explaining that, actually, and kind of putting it all together. And it just seemed like a beautiful question to kind of ask you with that work. And you did a wonderful job answering, because I know a lot of people wonder that. It's a little bit like, how am I connecting? Where is it coming from? How is it flowing through so that I can express it? And so you answered that beautifully. So I think now would actually be a wonderful time for you to share an experiential experience with us of your work. And if you could, I would like you as well to kind of explain a little bit about what it is that we are going to experience. And then just go ahead and present us with that. And then let me know when you're complete. I'm going to go ahead and pin you so we can experience it as well. All right.
Amazing. So we are going to channel a crystalline light language we're in an interesting time with humanity's evolution, where we're heading into the golden age, and that is that our solar system is literally physically moving into a photon belt that's being emitted from the great central sun, which is at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So this is why we are going into what's called the golden age, because there's going to be a lot more light particles that may or may not be able to be seen by our limited human visual perspective, right? So because we can only see a very small part of the light spectrum. So we're heading into this new area, and one that we haven't been in for thousands and thousands of years. We've been through dark ages and so forth in order to get here, which is why we're seeing all this the light being shone on the corruption of all the systems that we have in place. As part of that, we are carbon-based beings on a carbon-based planet. However, with more energy coming from the photon belt, we are going to have another structure that's already within us and within the planet itself, the crystalline structure. And this is a more fluid, more plasma-like structure. And I actually had a very interesting revelation just in the last day or two, learning about the fascia system within the body. And they're actually saying that the fascia is crystalline and it's able to be solid and fluid and all these things. And I'm going, wow, I think actually when we're talking about the crystalline structure is being more connected to that part of our body. And so anyway, we are going to channel the crystalline light language activation that is going to help us integrate the energies from the photon belt, integrate them so that we can become more conscious and aware of this structure within ourselves, and therefore be able to hold more light, more consciousness, and walk the planet with essentially more grace. And you'll see, hopefully, as we become more conscious and as we hold more light, that we see the world very differently, from a much more open and loving and also grounded space. So I'd love to offer this channeling for everyone, remembering that this light language is channeled in the highest and best for all involved. Everyone's individual higher aspects have full discretion over the energies that come in. and they will be utilized in the most perfect way for you. If you could bring your attention to your feet so that we can stay nice and grounded for this channeling, and to our heart space so we can remain as open as possible with the heart. That'll help also to integrate these energies. Kia kana tala o ka madai sa adugo man aishuko adara isi akana te mai. Pa ai sa kana da adugo ma aishuka ba te yushka ba duku kina at sei te kapa ano ko panai. Pa da ai sa kana da ba dugu man dai. So right now we're just bringing this energy in and moving it down the body so that we get down to the feet so that we're anchoring ourselves to the planet. Patana tukumanati, patatatkamati, apana esi tatakana tala isukapata tukumana isukaranadai. Para isukarana tala isigabadi isukarana talutugi sana o para iyo, amanio, annamio, 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 ammanio. Feeling the feet, feeling the heart space. Ya atro. Ya atro matai asia tana itigama aise. Havatia tagamana sadatia tagrana talai asia tigama tukutukamai. Patala tukutukumanai. Patrata tukumananai. Patratukanatatanai. 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 Patratutatanatanai. Apayaso, apanayaso, apanayaso. So we're just going to give the body a chance to release any energies, any discordant energies that aren't serving anymore, especially in relationship to activating, connecting in, and elevating the crystalline structure. Ya akawan tadi satu kepada chikamati tata is karena terlalu chikamati tata is kepada dukumarada terlalu dukumati sekarang kepada ma pada day pada pada is kepada ni rada is kepada ni sedai dukuan mana day is kepada ni ningwa pada day is kepada ni rumba. Remembering to breathe deeply karena terlalu chikamati chikada is kepada kurata terlalu is kepada kepada pana Happenaya Saginaro, Happenana Seatano, 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 Shong, Kamanda Yasagamana, letting it go, letting go of all the energies that no longer serve Hirana Gamana, Shamana Sigaba, Shushaman Shungadai Sigana, Shushakamana Sigana, Shushakamana Sigana, Shushakamana Sigama, Shum, the Rana Sigama, Ayatakamana, Hayatakamana, 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 Hayatakamana to go by Icicle, what to Gamana Icicle, Opera Icicle, what to Gamasico, at the oh, hatanaiso, oh, maiso, ho, ha, ho, ha, e, ha, e, ha, e, pa. Shana ba. Okay, so with enough releasing there, go back to the crystalline structure. And we're going to be calling this forward. This fluid, beautiful crystalline structure. So sparkling, all the colors of the rainbow, semi-translucent, absolutely gorgeous, flexible, malleable, so full of your love. It actually enhances your love. It allows for greater expression of your love. Panna tuma ayu pana. Yonam, 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 Hayo, so Tanai. Ayat Ranatakamata Yesiti, that it's about Tokamoto, Guching Natai, Patni Dokamoto, Tatatanai, Patatatanai, Patatatanaya, Honato, Okina Kokokama, Salotomo Shano. Nice deep breath. Let it all go. Nano kabadi, tano kubadana no kubana. Salo tani kinay tamasho kamata. Patagamitik na kupuchkamatalo, tapatado kabatiyo. Patananotiko kunamono, patananiya sapaniado. Hiona panaso, feeling the stability of your field, of your aura. Prano takamenti, feeling the stability in your body. Prano tikamatano sami. Feeling any other sensations that could be coming up for you. Prano tamatano. Piano tamata. Everything is perfect. Piachukamatano. Everything is happening in perfect divine timing. Kiatkukomadauto. You are an expression of divine love. Tiatakotokomono. Omano. Ayaso. Ayatono. Osayo. Onato. Osayatayano. Om. Yanatama sai kanatata yos katata no sokotamato. Ayatana atata yeso kanata hadara. Hara hara. Hara 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 sa sa sa. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. The first thing that I wanted to say was I was so happy to hear you talk about fascia, the connective tissue, as like the crystalline matrix, because I've been saying, hearing that and saying that for years, because I spent years as a myofascial release therapist. And so with light language and energy, I always had that higher level of understanding about what we were doing and really speaking about it. Elohim had said it's a crystalline matrix, and they call it like the pathway of light and consciousness through the body. That is like our what do you call it? Like that tonal, axial tonal lines within the physicality that goes out through our energy systems and connects to the axial tonal lines and the grid lines and so forth of our surroundings, the earth, the planet, and so and beyond. So in picturing that, it was just a massive understanding of how we ourselves within soul self and the physical body and the earth and just our connection to all things is kind of through the connective tissue. And I know here years ago, it wasn't even in Grey's Anatomy, they were talking about the connective tissue. Oh, that's connective tissue. It was just like, they didn't know what it was. They never explained it. They just didn't think it had any function whatsoever. And still that's in the old Grey's Anatomy books. And so, but now they've discovered, and there's a lot of research around the fascia, and how you have to have fluid and just emotions get stuck, just the whole thing. So that was just so beautiful to hear. But as you were doing this kind of crystalline matrix activation, I think you call it, I could feel that and kind of interpret like the lines of progression through my body. And then I like sneezed 4 times in a row and my brain feels like it's expanded or something. Like something is clearing. So that was beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
Amazing.
Did you have anything to share, Donna, before I move on?
I can't even put words to what I just experienced. It was so like was all over the place. I don't like if you guys saw me, I was like moving and doing codes and mudras and everything. Everything was coming online. Everything was activating. I don't know what just happened. I can't put verbiage to all of that. So we will unpack that and see where that goes.
I love that. Thank you. I wanted to say, isn't it interesting, the connective tissue? Connective tissue. Like they named it perfectly. I wonder who was conscious enough to do that.
Well, it was interesting because when they called it connective tissue, the only thought that they had was it was connecting the muscles to the bone and vice versa. It was connecting all aspects of self together. So you think of it almost like a crazy glue or something. I don't know. It's just keeping us together. Because if we didn't have fascia, we would just like collapse into a bundle of, yeah. So it does hold us together. But when you look back at it, maybe it was just a stream of consciousness that came through and said, yes, let us call that connective tissue. I don't know. So I'm feeling like this pressure, like coming in is good and kind of going in, and we'll talk a little bit afterwards, but from that beautiful, I don't want to call it a demonstration because it was so much more than that, but that experience that you brought us through. I'm going to go ahead and flow into our Trinity Light dialogue, and I will begin, and then Andana, and then we will go to you, Laara, and we'll make a couple passes. Sit kirjama tutras pera ai utras pikindod, de kiti utras pakena ma tutras pijayera le kutre tun, ken me turas putuku yara bakatristit, e du kutre ni moyana tra, dore kesja, ne turer utras pikitja, dore andere, e su koira maturam, sakatiris tu trulia, matika utra endure.
Tutto ciò che me tata ai tutto tamati ciò che ai indo sotto tema asintro che ciò che me attende o su biru tandi ciò trama isendrogo ara I tandi e ciò trama hi raso te ai sendra che tu mi tu a di sendro che ba rutende o ciò tre ai inda so de me ciò tre ai ciò trama I tandi ciò tre ai o ara isendra che wa hu de a hu raxindu arade a Resandrege marutu si de a forutende a show risia da gai raso de a rosia da ma isiam.
Kiano koma de salai tikama kana dimen de si. Tarana tikamanta gitchkamna dia satellite tikama de sadaria karamotana. Pada esio tikama ishira tikibradana ishina kamno kapata eso kompa. Hapadia sakopata no kidnai sat lalu gimana jigota kan telai si tikamo ponasia tigada girada tikamada sa ayo tona pana upompat.
Utres terica ciatundre kirir motutia spura, respirir mandate respicire tu tundre picora, and serca cutres brujam, di leria tu cuchum. Bakere motu traspecet dele ture, specama ya motu respira motu cura, haere coture, haere culture spuira motu respire, catchien motu. Ye tu c'è pacatro. Te che scere che non respira. Atia, ma cutire mino tru si picco tremendie no tuer.
Mi te si te dico so da mai ta watu de so tragaindo abrutu scendragai. Risandrege maru arrasi androma di si trama I tandi a su tregai. Rotani a su trama I tano sai. Rahia tu kai ro hai. Hatu sindroma uandia chotreke maruti si rutan ratsut di si marutu shindrake orutende asho rahu de rad resto trabe orunde asho trabe atsonde a du sindakai rahi roktoma a di sand rosian damat ision ratwa ision risandrame otand ision.
Yeah, no, mana. So dai tikamanta kanot kamini isi dukipa mana no. Ay ada ko ba dai sa ko ba din na ko ba shi kama di sa ko ba dai apa dai ko ba na dai ma to go shi ka mai sa da ko ba is ka no pani ka no ko ba shi ka no ta kena sa to ko ma di ko da drama di sa da lo to ko ma chikna sa da dai ha pe me is ko bo to ko me ni to ko ma di is a pa no ko ba dai apa no ay to ko ba da na so ay to ko ba to gina ko ba na li jana Hana so tikama danda atige dutra.
Si devina ma respira tun. En bakera pa Jesu o respican mo respire sutrum. Da tiere che piccion respire o respicanda. Da tire poco tremiendere. Thank you so much for playing. And thank you so much for sharing in this conversation. And now I would like to ask you, like, what is the best way for our audience to connect with you for further information or to take part in your offerings?
So I have an Instagram account and Facebook as well, and well, YouTube. So you can find me Light Codes by Laara on all of those platforms, as well as my website, lightcodesbylaara.com. So it's LAARA, and just you can find me in all those places. And we offer one-on-one sessions, but we also have a lot of free content on our social platforms, as well as on soulsearch.tv. We do have a TV series on there as well called Ascension Codes. And that's really useful for people who are just starting on this light language journey, because we go through my perspective of what all light language is and how to work with it and connecting with it and spirit guides and the ascension process, all with the assistance of light language. So it's a lot of fun and very activating.
Well, it's been such a pleasure having you here at the Light Language Round Table. And Donna, did you have anything you'd like to share before I close?
This was absolutely beautiful. I loved hearing your story, and it was so resonant. The light language, everything was so resonant. You're such a beautiful soul, and I'm so happy to have had this opportunity to share with you.
Oh, likewise. I'm so grateful to have had this time with you ladies. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Well, thank you, Andana, and thank you, Laara, and thank you to everyone who has tuned in, and thank you so much. Much gratitude, and we will see you next time.
Tutti se vedre, caira batu suere matre spura, taciere di Pirico tutte rispagliano gente, su cui amatoscia, te pacutro spira tu, ancora. Continua a suonare ieri sera.
This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.